Hello! Welcome to the So You Want to Be a Marine Biologist podcast, where we dive into the connection between the land, the sea, and us. Here, field stories reign supreme and life experiences are divulged. I'm your host, Kara Muzia. Let's dive into today's episode. Have you heard about my free program, Back to Nature? Getting outside is vital to our health and the health of our planet. The cool part is, to reap the benefits, you only need a few minutes a day. This course is designed to be fun and easy to do, and perhaps spark an adventure or two. Click the link in the show notes to get started today, or visit karagracemuzia.com. Hello, mermaids, pirates, ocean lovers, and land lovers. Welcome to today's show. You know, I tried acupuncture last weekend. I didn't really get the point. And really, acupuncture is a jab well done. Dr. Steve Moreau is a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner with Caribbean roots. Like so many of us, Steve wanted to be a marine biologist in childhood, but personal health challenges in high school led him to pursue a career in wellness. On the show today, Steve shares his story from eating the standard American diet to vegetarianism to veganism and finally eating according to biology. Steve's winding journey takes us through what true health and vitality looks and feels like, how to be connected to where your nourishment comes from, and the very winding, sometimes daunting path of following your heart and true passion. Fair warning, the field story at the end of the episode does include maybe a little bit of TMI for more sensitive listeners. For those that have faced health issues and spent time with doctors who asked probing questions, you'll probably be fine. Please enjoy. Steve, welcome to the So You Want to Be a Marine Biologist podcast. I'm really excited to have you on today.
Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here, really.
Yes. So for you, when we met and we were chatting on the phone a few weeks ago, one of the things that you shared with me is that you actually wanted to be a marine biologist when you were young. And it made me really happy because I hear this so much. So I'm really happy to have you on the show and chat more about that. So where did that interest spark from, and what was that like for you?
You know, it's so funny. I often just throw that out to people, but it's a real thing for me. And I very rarely get called on it like, oh my God. And so when you said that, I was like, you can't make that up. Are you kidding me? She's actually a marine biologist and actually has a podcast that references that as a launching point for things. I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't know that was a thing. So, I was excited, so trust me. But it was very specific. Fifth grade, where I went to school in upstate New York, fifth and sixth grade were separate from elementary school. And so going to fifth grade was kind of like this big thing. And in fifth grade, you got to go to an overnight, 3-day overnight trip called Project C. And it was at a Boy Scout camp, upstate New York, Bear Mountain, if people know that area. Amazing, wonderful views and vistas. You go hiking, whatnot. Part of that event, and it was my first time going overnight, right? So it was like this big thing I was looking forward to, all that good stuff. And they had a science center, and they had us take little samples from the lake, put it in a little petri dish, and put it under the microscope. And at least for me, when I got to see that there was all these little living things in it, and there's this whole other world, done. I was like, what is this? And you have to understand, I've always been interested in, I love fantasy. I love all these kind of books. I was reading C.S. Lewis when I was a kid, all that. And so to know that there was this other world was like, oh my God, magic exists and all these little creatures, right? So for me, I was kind of primed for that, if you will. And that began it. I insisted on getting a microscope for Christmas that year, and which my parents thankfully did. And that's kind of where it started. It really was. I've always loved the ocean. My parents come from Haiti, from the island. And, so I'd always had this fascination with the ocean and water. I wanted to breathe underwater like Aquaman when I was a kid. So trust me, I'm all in. I know this sounds geeky, but I don't care. And I'm just letting you know, this is kind of me. And so I would draw like underground cities. And I mean, even before all of this with the Project C and the microbiology. So yeah, when I realized that could be a thing, was, I was purely fascinated from the science and the nature and exploration aspects and, these different creatures, and be able to see that under the microscope was like, how is this even possible? What is this? So that's kind of how I dove in. And so it was a very specific set of events for me.
Yeah, I love that. So when did that kind of wane for you? Because I know you had some different parts of your story that really shifted the trajectory of where you went in your life and some health issues. So where did the fascination for marine biology kind of shift to other things?
It was always kind of there in the background. And the way it remained was my interest in science. And so I became very fascinated with science, biology. Seventh grade, had a really good biology teacher. And I remember seeing under the microscope again, cell mitosis, and I remember seeing all this happening. It was like, and I could memorize all of the organelles. And so it just shifted into biology.
Okay.
And then in high school, I kind of went more the route of, oh goodness, I'm trying to think here. I was class president, and so there was just a lot of activity, interest. But I always kind of kept an interest in science or nerdy stuff, if you will. But then towards the end of high school, it's interesting because I thought I'd be a lawyer. So I kind of morphed away from science, if you will, and just had this, interest in the law and, justice and all this other things. And then end of high school, I actually started having some health issues and a really bad depression, basically that hit me my senior year. That plagued me for about 5-6 years. Went off to college. It stuck with me in college, and it was really in college that I started really focusing on my health and figuring out like what went wrong. Why am I not who I was before? So it was interesting. Kind of that health piece kind of pulled me back in. So I would say it kind of waned, if you will, in terms of specifically marine biology, but the interest in science and reading up on science, especially when it became connected to my health, that kind of took, it just morphed into that, if you will. And so I took my interest there and just kind of, focusing, how could I regain my health? And that then became my health journey, like most people, diet, experimenting, vegan, vegetarian, like all of this stuff. Right.
So I would love to dive into that a little bit more. I know you've talked about this on your podcast, but I really think it's a poignant point to make in our society today about how our food, how we're connected to our food, and our food is connected to the earth, and it just kind of is all super connected. So would you go into your story with your health issues? I know you said you had the standard American diet, and you just said that it wasn't working for you. That's for sure.
Yeah, I was very fortunate. So now that I look back on it, right, it's always hindsight. It's like, oh, okay, I see what's going on. I was very fortunate in the sense that my mom cooked pretty much every meal that we had at home, at least dinner, right? So I grew up having these, family meals, and my mom was very particular about that kind of stuff. She would actually read Prevention magazine back when it actually was about health, back in the 80s. And so I remember always her talking about, oh, we should eat this, we should do that. Now, of course, eating Haitian food, Caribbean food, a lot of freshly made foods, a lot of rice and beans, meats and vegetables, all that. But we always finish it with a bottle of a soda on the table. And basically my senior year, I basically realized that my brain was not functioning like it was. I felt like someone had turned off the enthusiasm switch in my life, my motivation switch. And now when I look back on it, I had remembered that for a track and field that I was involved with, I was trying to lose weight. And I remember doing the whole slim fast thing, which was popular back in the late 80s, 90s. And basically realizing I probably wasn't getting the best nutrition, even though I was eating good at home. At some point, I wasn't even eating that, because I went the whole, I need to lose weight. I need to do all these things to maintain my fitness, not understanding any of that, right? That you actually need to eat food and good quality food. So that I felt really contributed to my depression, I guess you could say. It wasn't even really anxiety. It was really more depression, like someone turned the switch off. And so going off to college, again, having access to foods I normally didn't eat, it was mostly junk food. It was mostly the carb stuff. And I wondered why I only lasted 2.5 years, right? That kind of was like out of, at least at home, my mom was cooking real good food. And I was at least getting some nourishing foods there. In college, it was like way off the bandwagon, completely processed foods, eating pizza 4 o'clock in the morning with 50 hot wings covered in all types of sauces and deep fried into bad vegetable seed oils that we know now. This is the 90s. And wondering why I couldn't regain my health, right? Because I was digging myself even deeper as I was trying to look into, maybe I need to. College was when I first did a fast. And I can remember doing having done it was a 3-day fast, water fast. And second day into it, I felt like I was floating, right? And now I realize I was probably disconnecting from the work. It wasn't such a good thing in that sense, because I was kind of lightheaded, right?
Yeah.
There's obviously a better way of doing fasting, which I eventually learned. But I was experimenting, and so I was questioning food quality.
Mm-hmm.
I was questioning, processed foods and that generic term of processed foods. But what did that actually mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, vegetarian foods at that time, there wasn't really vegan stuff then. It was more vegetarian, have kind of health halo, so moving in that direction, I thought was, from everything I've been reading, that was healthier for you. But there was definitely a focus on nutrient density in terms of getting specific nutrient-packed foods. I can remember one of the first things that I made on my own from this herbal book was something made from, interestingly enough, Irish sea moss.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that connection back to marine biology again, because of all its minerals.
Yes.
And coming from the Caribbean, that was a connection I had because we do use that in the Caribbean as a health tonic.
Yeah.
And it's amazing for me to see that in health food stores now, right?
Yes.
So
I see it. I do see it. Yeah.
You see right? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. Yes. I haven't used it yet, but I've seen it in the health food stores and even the herb shops. It's fun.
It is, and it is. It's an aphrodisiac. They make a drink from it in Jamaica as a male tonic, if you will, aphrodisiac. Those type of things. But basically, it's just it's full of nutrients. When I worked on the farm, one of the things that again it came back to me again on the farm. Anytime an animal was sick, we'd always supplement with certain foods, but we would set that animal aside if she had mastitis, and we would feed her regular feed, and then we would supplement with extra seaweed for the nutrients, right?
Yeah, it has so many nutrients. Yeah.
Right. And so that's, again, I really felt that working on the farming life dovetailed very nicely with me to see animal health, human health, and how real nutrition.
Right. Yeah. So I want to take a step back.
Go, please.
So you did vegetarian, and you're just, what that did for you was clean it up, right? Exactly. We got rid of the processed nonsense, and now we're eating whole foods from the source. And when I was listening to your story the other day, it was great, and you felt good for a little while, but then things started going sour, right? So like cleaning out all the processed junk helped. Excellent. And then you're still not getting the full nutrition that you need. And so now you're supplementing, right?
Supplement, yes.
So would you chat a little bit about that and how that progressed from veganism and then eventually how you had to come full circle?
Yeah, literally. Yeah, that's exactly it. For about 3-4 years, that transition to veganism, feeling really good. I was doing cleanses, detox. Oh my goodness. I remember I had done one liver cleanse one time. My goodness, I had so much energy. I was literally running. I had to run it off, right? Mm-hmm. Because I had so much energy. And so I'm thinking, hey, I hit the jackpot. Mm-hmm. I know what I'm doing. I was doing 2 cleanses a year, eating my vegetarian, vegan food, so on and so forth. I was living in Northern California, the Bay Area, San Francisco, Bay Area, Berkeley at the time specifically. And so a great place for it, right? Because it's abundantly available as well. And then late 20s started kicking in, and I noticed that even doing the same things, I was not as vital as I was previously. And I'm thinking, what am I doing wrong? Or what's, I'm doing everything. Like I'm feeling great, but all of a sudden it started kicking in. One of the first clues should have been this. I was in Berkeley and I was on break at the store I was working at. It was a health food store. And I went to grab some soy milk to make something.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, the guy next to me saw I was pulling it out and he said, "Oh, what do you know about soy?" And I was like, "Oh, well, blah, blah, blah." And then he had this look on his face. He said, "Well, you may want to investigate further. There's some negatives about it." And I remember thinking that was the first time that I had been challenged, but he wasn't overtly challenged, but he was just saying, "You may want to take a pause here. First time ever." Right? And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Like in my head, I said, "Okay, cool." Promptly ignored him. Right? But it stuck in my brain for later on, because then after that, I was like, man, okay, maybe if I'll cheat and just have some cheese, right? So I kind of started to lean that way, like just following my body cues, right? Like, okay, I'll just have a little cheese. And I started noticing, I actually felt better after I had that cheese, right?
Yeah.
So that was so then that shift started coming on in my late 20s, early 30s. That's really when it got worse in terms of the fatigue. And so what happened was I felt I needed to double and triple down. So then I became a raw foodist vegan, because I just thought I wasn't doing vegan enough. So I became a raw food vegan. Nothing was 118 degrees. I bought a big Excalibur food dehydrator. Those of us who are in that biz know what that is, right? And basically I would make veggie loaves. I would make flaxseed crackers. I mean, I was cooking all my food because I was keeping control of it. And again, a slight blip for maybe a month or two, and then moving back to go to acupuncture school. And in acupuncture school, long days, I would literally have to sleep or kind of crash in between classes, in between even the 20-minute breaks, 15-minute breaks, sit in the back, lay down, because I was just so tired. And I'm like 30, 31 at the time. There's something wrong. And so one of my Chinese teachers, she very clearly saw that was going on, and she was like, "What's going on?" I said, "I feel tired all the time." And first semester acupuncture students, you're trying everything, right? Because that's what you do. You think you have all the problems, and except I actually did. She actually felt my pulses. There's a Chinese diagnosis. Looked at my tongue, and she basically said, "Oh, you need to eat meat." And she didn't know I was a vegetarian at the time. She's just knew her stuff. And I was like, "No, I don't." I was like, "Yeah, you need to eat meat. You're very blood deficient." And so the real take home moment was, she had done this diagnostic. There was a big tall guy, other one of my classmates, walking down the hallway. She pulled him over. She felt his pulse and tongue and had me do the same. And she literally said this. She says, "Feel his pulse." That's like you said. She goes like this. "He's a man. You're not."
Rude. Oh my God.
Exact words. I'm so not kidding you. He's saying this is the pulse of a man. This is how it should be, vital and robust. And she says, man, right? That's her way of saying it. She didn't have the best grasp of English language.
Yeah. Her point got across, though. Oh my God.
Exactly. The point got across. And I was like, wait, what? And so I understood what she was saying at that point. And then someone gave me, one of my other teachers gave me Nutrition and Physical Degeneration, Weston A. Price's book. Like literally that December of 2003. That's actually when that happened. And I remember I took the book home, read it. I was like, okay, they've got to have a website. They did. And I was like, wait, raw milk? Farm food? Like all of a sudden the lights just kind of came out. I saw the pictures, and it was like I kind of came out of a haze. And I was like, oh my God, I think that makes sense, right? It just made logical sense that it was real food, and how traditional people, so all of the kind of cloud just kind of, dissipated. And I just kind of woke up and was like, where do I find raw milk? It's only an hour and a half away from me. Great, I'm there.
Yeah.
That's how it began.
Yeah, I love that. So for listeners who may not be familiar, Weston A. Price was a dentist in the early 1900s. And he was noticing that his patients, their faces were kind of twisting, and they were having mouth deformities, right? Like crooked teeth is like the easiest way to describe that. And he was like, what? Like, I think there's more to it than just like people get crooked teeth. And so he set out to travel the world, and he did. And he studied indigenous cultures. And what he found was the ones that were eating an ancestral diet. So raw, well, maybe not raw meat, but meat, organ meat specifically, full fat, everything, nothing processed, nothing pasteurized, none of that, everything connected to the source. All of these people had beautiful teeth, beautiful skin, just the epitome of true human health. And so there's a foundation today that exists that promotes these values, and they're amazing. And this is actually, I went to a conference in October, and this is where I met Steve, because health is wealth. And what I've kind of realized, I got into marine biology because I wanted to save the oceans and heal the planet and do all of the great things. And that's still there. And what I've kind of learned through getting older, getting wiser, maybe a little bit, is that we cannot heal the planet without healing the people. And it's all connected. So if we are unhealthy, if our food has to go through factories, we don't feel good. And if we don't feel good, then how can we do good things? So I'm really excited about the work you're doing. So I want to take a couple steps back in your story. And you described your health journey really beautifully. Like, just weren't feeling good and you kept searching for answers. And you found them. And it wasn't just like, okay, I'm going to have a day job and do this on the side. It really became your life. So could you describe a little bit of what your professional career, how you made those pivots and what that really looked like as you were following your own passion?
Yeah. So very interesting. As a result of looking for my own health, then I was at the same time become a vegetarian and so on and so forth. Someone said, try acupuncture. And I had moved to Atlanta at the time, 94, 95, somewhere in there. Actually, just before the 96 Olympics. So I know as I was there in 95. So someone said, try acupuncture. So I did. I hadn't heard about it, didn't know anything about it at all. And within 6 months, I was feeling a whole lot better. And mind you, I was still doing vegetarian, whatnot. But the acupuncture turned for the mental aspects of the motivation, and all of a sudden, I was like, wow, I feel so much better. So that acupuncturist and his wife became my mentors. And so from 95, they moved to Arizona in end of 95. I followed them. And so from 95 to about 2000, I basically apprenticed with them. And that was when I found what I wanted to do with my life in terms of my profession. And I had always been I'd been looking, because remember, I dropped out of school right after 2.5 years. And so, thinking I'm a failure, all these other things, right? Like, what am I going to do with my life? But my main thing was I was so subsumed with trying to regain my health that it wasn't until I started getting into acupuncture and just found a passion, I just followed it. Did that make sense? Like, all I kept thinking about was how I can be healthy. And then I was like, oh, I can help other people. And then all of a sudden then I also just brought in this other piece of like, oh, wow, I can do this to help other people, right? And I can make money at it too, right? The money wasn't the main part. The main part was like, because I was fortunate. I saw my mentors had a very similar story. His health broke down in his like 40s and 40s. But he was able to travel the world and, do all these amazing things. And I was like, oh, wait up, he's doing that. He's making money just by following his passion. Did that make sense? And so I was fortunate. And I was really fortunate because he was a Black acupuncturist on top of that, right? Black male acupuncturist, which was, again, now that I think about it, I'm like, yeah, that really doesn't happen often, right? So, and again, not something I was thinking about, but I was like, oh, wow, his name was Dr. Wright. And so that's when my professional aspirations came in. And so followed him and his wife. They had studied in Sri Lanka. So I studied in Sri Lanka, been there 2 different times, 2 years. And I just use that as a template, right? That's when that began. So that was 90. Yeah. So then when I came back to this country back in early 2000, I had to get my license, because even though I had apprenticed for 4 years, I didn't have any paperwork, right? That would be recognized. Even though, interestingly enough, this is actually how it was done, right? You actually apprentice on someone for 4 or 5, maybe longer, obviously.
Right.
Then, so I felt comfortable after 5 years. I actually was in Arizona where I was living at the time. They had no Practice Act. And so you could practice. So I was practicing the acupuncture, and we would have been the first group of people. We were actually about to, we were working on getting acupuncture established with the legislature then. If I'd stayed, I would have, been grandfathered in. But life had other plans. So it moved me forward to other countries, to other places. But that's kind of where my professional aspirations came in, where like, okay, I'm doing acupuncture. At least I know that. Right. And I was really excited.
So not everybody's familiar with what acupuncture is. I think the biggest public perception of it is like you get stuck with needles, if they've even have an idea of what it is. So I've done it. It's amazing. It is amazing. So I'm curious, could you explain a little bit more about like the principles behind it and what was your first perception of it actually? Like, what was your experience with it?
Similar. Needles. And I'm thinking, okay, this man's going to put these needles. I was trusting, and I went with my intuition and my gut, right? So I'm assuming they've been doing acupuncture for thousands of years. We must have some system behind it. I mean, just that intuitive part of me made sense to me. I was like, okay, it was a Chinese guy doing it originally. So I'm like, okay, he must know what he's doing. Chinese. So
hopefully,
right? Let's see how this works. But I felt much better. And then I found my mentor not much longer after that, to be honest with you. But acupuncture is the system of healing from China. And I really say the ancients, because from my understanding now, China has kind of been the last repository of this information of acupuncture and its principles. But there were even healing principles of that in Ayurveda in India, right? So I, just my own personal opinion, I really feel like it almost came from India and went into China, and China's kind of, the Chinese and other Asian cultures kind of propagated even more. But anyway, associated with China. And so it was a system of healing of using needles in specific areas of the body to manipulate the flow of energy, is what we would call it. But it's more than just a flow of energy. It's actually the electrical neural pathways of the body. What we in the West would correlate to the nervous system. But that nervous system, they have a more refined understanding in the Chinese system, where it actually, the movement of the blood, the movement of nutrients can actually be manipulated. And if there's blockages in certain parts of the body, then you are going to have dis-ease. You're going to have an imbalance. And why is that important? Because you can then, if there's too much energy in one place, then you can stimulate the needles and cause it to flow and create that balance in the life. Each of the different organ systems in the Chinese medical system have control over certain symptomology in the body. And so when someone has problems sleeping at night, racing mind, heart palpitations, anxiety, we correlate that to a heart imbalance. And so we are then able to look at the heart meridian pathway, stimulate in such a way to bring balance back to that pathway. And so each of the organ systems has a symptomology chart that we're able to determine. And so our diagnostic methods of feeling the pulse, of looking at the tongue, just a physical pallor plus the person's symptoms create a picture for us as to what is imbalance in the person. So what I like about Chinese medicine is that it was the original holistic medicine, because we always take into account the person's psycho-emotional issues going on with people. In fact, you can't do acupuncture without taking that into account. We considered it part of the pathology is, anger, right? And so that's what Chinese medicine is. It's a system of healing with needles, but it then not just needles, but really herbal medicine dovetails into that as well. And so it's gotten really popular in the United States since the 1970s, since it opened the door with China. I would say that a lot of people really started seeing when Michael Phelps had those cup marks on his back.
Oh, the cupping, yeah.
right? And everyone's like, what's all that bruising and these perfectly circular marks on his back? That's not normal. That's cupping, and that's a way of moving the stagnation, right? Where things are stuck in the body, lactic acid, blood flow is impaired, and so all of that is now being used to accelerate healing. And so that's a lot of what Chinese medicine is.
Love it. Thank you for that description. So in your journey, right, we go from vegan, okay, we found acupuncture, you go to acupuncture school, and she's like, you need to eat the meats. And you're like, no, I'm healthy without it. I don't get it. And there's so much out there that says, it's better for the planet if you don't eat the meats. And so could you talk a little bit about how your connection with your food kind of ties into all of this?
Well, for me, really, I went to acupuncture school, but then I also apprenticed as a result of Weston A. Price with the farmer that I work with. And that is, I would say, as important. I felt that was like my other medical training, if you will, literally, because I got to see that if you fed these animals properly, organic, animals raised on their natural foods were just healthy generation after generation. I proved what Weston Price was talking about, right? And I got to see it firsthand because, I would basically work during the week, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I would go to the farm and work on the farm for 4 years. Okay. And so I got to see that dovetail between food and nutrition, and health and the land, all that together, right? And for me, that's being on the farm and working and seeing all got together. I got to see families that would have, homeschool families. They would have sometimes some large families, and the first 3 or 4 kids very healthy, and then second and third, right, have some severe health issues. And come to find out that it was very much what Weston Price was talking about, that, if there's not enough nutrition for the mother to carry and to pass that on to the child, the same way we saw with the animals on the farm, right? I mean, that cow had to have enough nutrition to have health. And so then they would have the farm food, and then the kids, the ones that were having health issues, were kind of brought back. And then the mother would have 2, 3 other kids. And those kids were just as healthy, if not healthier, than the first batch.
Okay.
And we saw this continually. It was something to where I was like, the farmers I work with is Dennis Full Circle Farm. And I would say, Dennis, like, what's going on here, right? So Dennis almost became my farm mentor, right? And he would say, oh yeah, we see this all the time, right? So I got to see the intersection of food, health, lack of nutrients, nutrient density, right? On his farm, what I loved about what Dennis did on his farm and other farms that were there was the same way that you would take a blood sample, right? Blood test to diagnose, oh, you're deficient in this and you have too much of this. So he would do that with his soil on his land. He would actually, and the reason I know is because I was there doing it with him. I was walking this 80 acres that he had, and we were taking samples, right? And then he would send that in to see what his soil was missing. Yeah. And then he had a a Mayo. He's up in North Florida. He had a place where he could actually get rock powder that was selenium rich or magnesium rich. And we would put them on these huge, by the ton. And my job was to drive the tractor and spray the rock powder up and down the acreage of the land. Right. And then we went to see his soil that went from 1%, 0.5% organic matter to like 2, 3%, 4%. Right. One time that was really quite amazing. You see how God works, where a sinkhole opened up on his land on the front 10 acre. And we got to see how much organic matter was there. Right. Yeah. Huge, dark pack. And we're like, oh my goodness. And that was not there before. Right. That was over in soon. By that time, that was like 15 years in, right? Because we moved there I helped them move up there in like 2006, and 12 years in, maybe a little longer, we got to see kind of where there's all this dark matter, that organic soil. And so really my education was full circle at that point.
Yeah.
Understanding the soil, the health of the animal based on the health of the soil, and then that translated into human health. It was like, oh, this is really simple. This is not that, it's not that difficult.
Right.
And so what I love being on the land, and I particularly like milking the cows, which Dennis liked because he had to get up super early. I just happen to like that. I would see the, just before sunrise, right? And then by the end of the day, moving the cows to other pastures, you see the sunset. And, you do this over years, you kind of get to see the pattern, right? The sun rising, moving north, moving south, like all of this thing on the land. I got to see, and was that whole interplay. I understood. I was like, okay, we need more of this. Yeah. This would be healthy soil. Even the economics came into it, because then you realize, oh, if we just had a lot of small farmers, right, food would be less expensive. It'd be accessible to the quote unquote city folk. Right? So I just got to see the whole system of how it could absolutely be compatible, provided that we had economic policies, government policies that allowed for on the farm butchering. Instead of these big conglomerates owning everything. So my education kind of got into all of that real world. I got to see it. I was like, oh, this is, boom. It just opened. Instead of centralized, we need to be decentralized.
Yeah. Yes. So there's a few things that I really want to unpack about what you were talking about. So it's beautiful, like a healthy farm equals healthy people. And that's where it comes from, period. And this whole narrative of, don't eat the meat, meat's bad for you, it causes all these XYZ problems, blah, 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 blah. And with human health and health of the earth, a lot of this is because they're improperly raised animals, right? We have these controlled animal feeding operations that are feeding the animals not grass, not fresh grass, like they're feeding them soy and corn. And how are those things grown? They're grown in giant swaths of land and sprayed with who knows what to keep everything else out. So see, yes, come back to your point of decentralizing where the food is and bringing it back to the local. I think it's one of the most powerful things that we can do. I want to come back to soil health.
Sure.
Because it's such a hot topic. It's not just, it's where all of the minerals in our vegetables, right? You eat your vegetables, got to get the minerals, right? So our vegetables these days don't have nearly the amount of minerals that they did 100 years ago because of all the spraying that we've been doing and our lack of care for the land, which the animals help put back the nutrients, like the cows grazing on it helps put back these nutrients. And even you getting that rock mineral and spreading it on, it just helped retain things better and made the cows healthier and help them put more fertilizer back on perpetuating the cycle. But also by growing these plants, it's also drawing down the carbon from the atmosphere.
Absolutely.
So it's just this beautiful cycle.
Well, this is what I was saying. Kara, I was so blown away that everything that they were talking about, going green, sustainability, economic, I was like, I'm seeing it right here. We don't need glyphosate. We don't need all these pesticide fertilizers. The cows provide it. They run on, that green stuff, that solar stuff, right? The original green energy, right? Coming from the sun, the chlorophyll. All this was this closed loop system that I was like, oh my goodness, this is a sham what they're trying. To your point, how carbon sequestering, they found that dark matter that we talked about, that humus soil was being sequestered, provided that, you allow that animal to kind of, come out its back end, what it had just taken out. And now you grow that organic matter, you grow the microbes that then break things down, you keep growing. And I don't know exact percentage, but for each inch of whatever organic matter soil, you have X, Y, and Z number of carbon being sequestered from the environment.
Right.
So that is
the healthier the soil, the more carbon is being pulled out.
In the way it was designed to.
Right. Exactly.
Right? Like you don't need carbon credits. There's none of these fancy games that you're playing. You're just following the rules of nature. And so I remember seeing it like this, because he would explain it and we would see it. So So you have the animals eating the rapidly growing green grass, right? So let's say it goes to about here. The animal cuts it this level. Well, to support this root structure, this much of the animal above ground, the root structure below ground grows almost as much.
Right.
Roughly, right?
As above, so below.
Exactly. There you go. Right. There we go again. You cut this in half, then the bottom half gets cut in half, if you will, because it says, "Oh, I don't need this as much," but that part becomes the organic matter, right? Which then gets recycled. And so if you keep recycling, moving the animals, rotating animals on pasture, you continually pulse the soil. That what's left over at the bottom that gets truncated becomes food for the microbes. That then on the next pass that has the poop put on top of becomes a fertilizer. So there's your fertilizer. There's the sequestering of carbon. And when you talk about being a mind-blown system, I was like, this is perfect. We're always searching for utopia, right? Like the perfect system. It's already here.
It's already baked in. We just have to work with it.
Exactly. That's it. We need to stop interfering with the process and just allow nature to take its course. And here's what I love about it, Kara, as well. The human element, we're there as curators for the land. And so we went out and we did tree work, right? We had to cut certain branches off and allow light to come in, right? So we just didn't let nature run wild, right? We are part of the equation. Yeah. And what we're in charge of is that word husbandry, right? Animal husbandry. We're here to, marshal this land to make the best use of it. And to be quite honest with you, I don't think there's me personally, any better venture for me is when I end up getting my own farmland, because you have to be inventive. You have to take into consideration. I mean, you're part scientist, you're part economic professor, you're part, right? All this comes into play.
Part inventor.
Because Walmart is 30 miles away.
You gotta get real creative.
Right? Doctor, healer, right? So it tests you as a human being on the farm, right? So it was just a very beautiful system that I got to see, and the soil is it. I mean, I'm all about soil. Healthy soil is where it starts. Yeah. And rotating animals on pasture is the best way. It doesn't matter. It could be 5 acres. It could be, right? Like just getting that animal rotational going, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And because this is the So You Want to Be a Marine Biologist podcast, I've talked a lot about, how wherever you are in the world, you are connected to the ocean. And I know it's really hard for people to visualize that when you're like in the middle of the continent somewhere, right? So to that point, there are watersheds everywhere. And this is one of the big points of agriculture. It's like, oh, they have runoff, and the runoff goes into the streams, and the streams go into the ocean, and Yes, they do. But if they're raised properly, the runoff is minimal because it goes into the soil. The soil will absorb it.
Yes. Well, if you're driving past these CAFO big animal agricultural facilities where they just aggregate all of the beef animals and such, you smell it before you see it, because they have these huge sewage lakes, if you will. That sewage needs to be out on pasture, and yet they've aggregated it here, and that's what's causing the problem. That high level of ammonia and everything else there, that is destroying our water systems, right? And the way you do that is you diversify. You put them back where they need to. And so really, it's only a matter of time before that happens, because it's not sustainable the way that we're doing things. To your point about the oceans, there are certain nutrients. I remember one time we actually he got something to spray on the land, and it was fermented seaweed of some sort, but it came from ocean water. Actually, it was actually ocean water that had been concentrated, because again, the ocean has all these concentrated nutrients, right? And so that was sprayed out on the land. So you can't get away from the ocean, from marine life. It's core, it's core for what we're working with. So yeah,
it's all connected.
It's all connected. It's all connected. It really is. I love it.
It is so fun. Okay, so you actually brought the farm to the people, right? Because not everybody can drive an hour and a half to
Sure.
go pick up their food from their farm, which is
Sure.
amazing.
Sure.
So what did that look like?
Oh my goodness, that was a lot of fun. Oh my God, when I think about it now that I did it for 14 years, I'm like, wait, I did what? So I called it Farm Fresh Direct to You, right? And that's what I did. I brought the farm to people, and
Mhm.
it was really an extension of what I did for myself, right?
Mhm.
The farm at that time was an hour and a half away from where I was living, and I was going there anyway. Um, I was so excited about getting access to this food and such that I have this bad habit of like getting really excited about something and then it just kind of peters out, right? And
Mhm.
so I told the farmer, I said, listen, I'm probably just going to I need to get this out of my system. Let me just work with you. You know, we can barter or whatever. Let me just work with you for a little bit. I'll get out of my system and I'm not going to, I'll just come get my food. No big deal. Um, yeah. So I started working with him. We plowed the land. We do all kinds of stuff. I enjoyed it, right? Kind of my weekend, exertion. Um, and then I just never left. It was 14 years later is when I stopped. Because then what happened was they moved 3 hours north.
Mhm.
And so I helped them move, right, and was their apprentice. And so to pay for my some of my expenses coming back down, he would say, "Hey, such and such wants food here. Are you willing to?" I said, "Yeah, sure. I'm coming down anyway." So it really was just accidental, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I'm turning around, I'm like, I got 5 people. And then I became a Weston A. Price chapter leader, right?
Mhm.
Because I was then spreading the word already. It wasn't even this business part. And then I was like, oh, well, I go to this farm, if you want food. And then it became business. So every 2 weeks, I basically went up to the farm and it was like a sprint. And I mean a sprint. Um, so I would go up to the farm Thursday morning after school, um, drive up Thursday night, work all day Friday, work all day Saturday, half a Sunday, get my orders together, drive back down. People would meet me Sunday night, afternoon, evening. I dispersed the food. So everything that got ordered during that week was completely gone by Sunday night. And then that grew from 10, 15, 20 people up to about 100 people. So every 2 weeks, then when it started getting bigger than that, I had to then have different pickup locations around Central Florida, and then I would have volunteers um, and pay them in food,
Okay.
food credit. And so basically, they would be my drop-off people. And what I loved about that system, to be quite honest with Kara, was I realized, oh, there's an alternative economic system here
Yeah.
that could be run on trust. Because think about it like this: the farmer, everyone placed their order. I got the website. People placed their order. They didn't pay for the food yet.
Mm.
Okay, so they paid. It was thousands of dollars worth of food. Trust me, right? Thousands of dollars worth of food. I go to the farmer. The farmer, I didn't pay him anything for the food yet. I just get the food.
Yeah.
I come down, disperse the food. I trust the people that they're going to be there with their money.
Yeah.
Once or twice, maybe I got stiffed. One, maybe, if I remember correctly,
Out of
right?
14 years.
Out of 14 years.
That's got to give you so much faith in humanity.
Can I tell you? Can I tell you? That's what made me realize I was in this circle of trust and created this energy of like, hey, think about this. They trusted that I didn't just go to Publix somewhere and get some eggs and just like,
Right.
you know what I
But
mean?
right.
Everyone,
Right.
no, that's what I'm saying. Like anywhere along the way, there could have been like dishonesty or right. How did they know I was going up to these farms? Right? Do you see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, how did I know that they were going to come and not stiff me on money or none of that happened? Right?
Yeah.
And it was across the political spectrum, economic spectrum, racial spectrum, like all of that. And for
Yeah.
14 years, I got to be a part of that every 2 weeks, connecting with people, talking about health. That's when I realized, oh, this is where we all connect.
Yeah.
And that was probably the biggest thing. I was like, oh, I'm not just bringing food to people. I'm part of an economic system. I'm part of a community building enterprise here.
Yeah.
And that's what allowed me to see like, okay, regardless of what people are talking about on all this other stuff, this is real.
Mhm.
That other stuff is just people doing this,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
In that time, I got to see parents who bought the milk for the raw infant formula that
Yeah.
Rustin and Price Foundation recommends if
Yeah.
they're not able to. And now those kids are 20 years old, and I got to literally see them from infants 14 years later, right?
Yeah.
They started at 3 years old, and I got to see this over and over again, Kara. And that's what I'm saying. It was a beautiful system that I was just like, wow. And then towards the end, when it was much more available, the reason I got out was it was more available. People were like, oh, I can get it here versus, and I was like, okay. I realized I was just a pioneer. I did my job. I got it started. And I'm okay to step back, right? It was a lot of work. But looking back, I'm like, how did I do that? Well, I had a lot of help, but there was just this energy. I got people to come to the farm. We would have farm days. You know, I wanted them to see where their food came from. Because once they saw where their food came from, they wanted only food from the farms. Like, it was very easy sell. Right? Very easy to do, like,
true.
Whatever he wants, whatever, whatever, yes. And I can't begin to tell you how many millions of gallons of raw milk, serving wise, if you consider that, that had been getting out and no one got sick ever. Right. So it's we had the state come after us 2006, and so we even had legal stuff happen. So it showed you the power of community, people sticking together, of real food and what it meant to people when they got real food. And that's all I care about. Like, once that happens, once a person had that milk, that yogurt, and all of a sudden they're like, oh my goodness, what is this? Oh, that's an egg. That's what that is. Oh, those are grits. You've not had grits until you've had real. So that authenticity for me had power. Yeah. That's what I wanted to convey to people. And once they did it, they were hooked. And my hook is not, oh, I sold more. It was more like, now you're going to be an advocate for real food because you understand the connection, and I brought you into that loop, and that's all that's needed. It's really simple. My thing is being to be really subversive, and all I do that is with one bite of real farm food. That's all. I don't care what your political spectrum is. If I get you to eat that food, I have it.
It's true. It's so true. It's true. So I don't know I don't think most of my listeners know about raw milk. If you do, amazing. And if you don't, I'm going to encourage you to visit Weston Price Foundation because they can articulate it better. The only thing I'll say on that is raw milk is how nature intended it. It was not meant to be put through processes and factories. And I have a family member who has a lot of gut issues, and the only thing that helps her is some raw dairy yogurt. So it's been amazing. You had told me a story when we chatted a couple weeks ago about how you butchered your own chickens. So you absolutely saw where the food comes from, and y'all did an experiment. You fed chickens, the standard grain that commercial chickens get fed with the soy and the wheat, and then you had fed them, and then you fed a different batch, no soy, no grain. Could you tell a little bit about the experiment and the health of the chicken?
Sure. That's one of the ones I love to talk about. In fact, I might have the pictures somewhere. So we want to understand this thing, and okay, the soy feed, just on principle, we wanted soy-free feed, so on. But of course, it's expensive, and so we end up having two tiers: the regular conventional feed, but still grown on grass. So still a lot of benefits, right? And then we were introducing the organic, soy-free, feed and such.
Right. Just real quick. So it was the chickens were grown really well. They're grown, if people aren't familiar, they're grown in chicken tractors. So they're outside in an enclosure, but they can move around, they can hunt and scratch, and the enclosures are movable so they can get fresh grass every single day. So they're not sitting there on poop. It's ideal for the chickens. The only thing that was different, the experiment was the feed.
Exactly. We sometimes moved during the summertime. We moved them multiple times because it got so hot. So they had everything they needed there. Their water, they could lay down. You got a new patch of grass. You can get some grubs, whatever's happening. So all we did was organic feed. Soy-free feed versus conventional feed. Only difference. We then harvest the chickens. And
so it wasn't organic. It was just soy-free.
Yeah, it was organic, soy-free.
Okay.
Versus
organic
conventional.
Gotcha. Okay, I'm with you.
And so we didn't just sell the meat of the bird. We also sold the liver, and the gizzards separately, right? So of course you had to remove them and put them off to the side and so on and so forth. And so it was very evident pretty much as soon as you opened up the chicken and were processing. The livers of the conventional feed was this grayish looking liver that basically just the slightest squeeze of your hand and it would like disintegrate. It was, I mean, I remember saying, hey, Dennis, look at this, like what's going on here? And we noticed it. And then when we opened up the other ones, the organic soy-free feed, those birds, remind you, they both were raised. In fact, the ones raised on soy-free feed, they had to go a couple weeks longer to get the same height, the same
Weight.
body weight.
To be the same, weight.
Right,
Yeah.
same body weight. So they had to go a couple weeks longer, right? But when you open up their livers, it was nice. I mean, it was this nice maroon, reddish color. You held it, and I mean, it had a lot of give to it. You couldn't just squeeze it and disintegrate. It had this connective tissue. It was strong and robust, and the color was this deep red. Because one of the things that you know about livers for all animals is basically it stores the blood. So there's a lot of blood in there, and one looked very anemic, and one looked very rich. One had a lot of nutrients in it. One had other stuff in it, right? And it was one of the things that we noticed right off the bat. The birds that were conventional fed, a lot of mucousy stuff in there, but it was really the organs that stood out. The gizzards, which another part that we sold, very similar. The way that they were constructed was not very well made. If they were the conventional feed, even if they were out on grass and it had other benefits. So the difference was in the quality of the food. And so that basically translated to, wow, you know, are you being made out of very good stuff that makes you solid and substantial? Or are you made out of something that allows you to kind of be knocked over by any old thing? And that, unfortunately, is what's being translated into human health as well, especially in the last, let's just be conservative, say 20 years, right? Actually been going longer than that. But the chronic health illness that we have here today could very well be attributed to what we're seeing.
Right. And that's something that I've heard of, right? People have soy allergies and they may or may not know it. And so they can't eat chicken eggs because a lot of the conventionally raised chickens are fed soy. And so they can't eat those eggs. But then they'll be able to eat the eggs that have been pasture raised, soy free. They can eat those and they can eat those chickens. So it's really fascinating. Like you are what you eat and you are what they eat. Like on a more morbid scale, like there's plastics, right? And like we're eating these things with plastic, and or if we're not actually consuming the particles, we have all the toxins that come from the plastic. So it's a very real thing. Like biomagnification and bioaccumulation have been studied very extensively on land and in the sea, and it's just a product. It's a product of what we eat. So yeah, you told me that story and I just thought that was absolutely fascinating.
I like to share that. Thanks for bringing that up because I appreciate sharing that one.
It's a good experiment. It really is. So how do you keep the connection, right? Keep the connection of the earth and your food and the people. What are some things that you kind of bring into your daily life, daily practice, or regular practice, maybe not daily, to kind of keep that connection?
Yeah, well, you know, for me, I have to get outside. I have to walk. I have to, you know, breathe fresh air. And I know that sounds really simple, but, you know, what I find funny about that is biohackers, you know, they're trying to do all these fancy things. And one of the things they tell people is go out, get the first sunlight in the daytime. Like, I'm like, yeah, we should have been doing that already. That's not a biohack. That's called being human. Right? So those type of things is kind of what I need. Getting connected back with the Weston A. Price Foundation, going to my local farmers markets. Those are kind of how I stay connected. You know, I'm going to be getting back this year. I was just thinking about, like, oh, okay, I'll be getting another quarter, half a whole or a beef, right? And then of course, so those are ways. I always tell people that obviously it was easy when I was going to the farm all the time. I get refrigerator stocked with that. But I just tell people Don't feel overwhelmed with it, right? Farmers markets, just get one or two things connected there. Or invest and go get a quarter, half, or whole. Start with a smaller piece of a beef, right? Grass-fed beef from a local farmer, right? Get a small freezer that you put in the garage, right? And that per pound is a lot cheaper. It's a whole lot cheaper. I mean, than what is in the stores and the nutrient quality. So something simple as that, spend, 800 bucks, and then you'll have that meat that'll last you maybe 6 months if it's a smaller cut. And me, of course, I'm going to probably do a whole animal that costs quite a bit more, but that'll last, right? So those are the ways that I stay connected.
For my fellow Floridians, hot tip: don't do it in August.
Yes.
Through October, there's a moratorium on stocking freezers.
Yeah.
I had it in my head, and I made the mistake this year, and I had a power outage, and I'm panicking looking for generators. So, hot tip: watch what months you're ordering your meat.
Correct. Very, very much so. Very much so. Yeah. And here's the thing, right? Power generators we need to have just because we have this hurricanes that come every year, so eventually we'll end up having that. So it is one of those things that we need to, and again, a little bit of forethought, right? Planning to take into consideration. But let me put it this way: when I started with the whole farm thing, there was no such thing in the stores as pastured eggs. Definitely no raw milk. Kombucha commercially sold available. So there are so many of these items that are now available, labeled as such now.
Right.
And that just shows you that the marketplace will respond to consumers.
Right.
Okay. And so unfortunately, there's a lot of greenwashing, and I'm sure we might want to explain that to viewers. Greenwashing is when they say that they are green or sustainable just by literally having a nice picture of a nice pasture field, and yet the ingredients are not actually that. So they're just like we call brainwashing. Well, this is greenwashing.
Right.
That's happening a lot now, right? Where they've diluted the standards of what it actually meant. We saw grass-fed wasn't even a term that they used. The USDA, I forgot when it was, 2010, came up with actual definitions of what grass-fed was. And guess what? It wasn't all 100% grass-fed. It was, why? Because they understood where consumers were going. Mm-hmm. And I tell people, don't feel dissuaded by that. Know that that means that you have the power. They're only responding to what you are doing. Yeah. Right. And so I was excited. I was like, okay, that means that if we all decided to go, a certain percentage of our food dollars goes to the local economy, it doesn't take a lot. Yeah. They work on very small, slim margins in these stores. You start going locally, all of a sudden you can support that. And it really is very doable. Very doable. Yeah.
It's true. So, it's very true. Okay. So at the end of each episode, I have a series of questions that I like to ask. First one for you is my blank check question. If you are given a blank check, unlimited funding for any project or projects up to 3, you don't have to do 3, it could just be 1, but up to 3, what would you use the money for?
Well, it's funny. I was thinking about this because I saw the email when you mentioned that. And I saw that the lottery was up to 700 million or something like that. And so I'm thinking, and literally that's exactly what I was thinking of, like, what would I do? I knew instantly one of the things I would do is I would put money into getting the legislator to allow for and advocate for, lobby for local processing, on the farm processing, or set up local processing plants, facilities that would allow farmers to take their animals to slaughter instead of having them to go to these big facilities that basically is far from where they are at. So I would advocate for that. Part of my money would instantly go to that. Okay. Because that would just change the economy of scale. That would be a huge impact.
So for listeners, just to kind of break that down a little bit. So farmers right now can't slaughter on the farm, which is how it was done forever. That's what hunters do. They slaughter their kill on site. Maybe they'll take it to a butcher later, but most of it is done on site. So, or processed in their house. Anyway, so commercial farm to sell commercially, you have to actually take your cow to a distributor, which may be nowhere near your farm. So now you have to like trailer the animal
Yeah.
and or multiple animals. So it's just an added expense for the farmers. They do quality checks there, which is great, but a lot of the times it's to the detriment of a local farmer.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of hiccups with the system as it is, and I think anything that forces it through a funnel and a process that's regulated, then it kind of takes away the power from the people.
Sure, sure. And the thing is, it can be regulated to some extent. It's just that you don't you treat the big boys as the big boys, but
Right.
then you don't then have that same standard for a farmer that's got 10 cows or 20 chickens.
Right.
Like it's different. You can achieve parity. You can achieve the quality the same way, right? They're just kind of painting them with a broad brush instead of having that legislature that allows for the uniqueness of that operation,
Yeah.
which is very, very doable. And so that's a lot of what I would instantly, because that would then make farming, boom, open it up financially even more economical. And so that'd be a big part of what I spend my money on. Right off the bat, I was just thinking about that. The other thing I would spend my money on, to be quite honest with you, is set up a raw milk lobby.
Yeah.
Right, like fund it, like the big boys fund. The other thing, we'd had lobbies in the ear of every legislature talking about raw milk, the benefits of raw milk, because really, again, my subversion there is if people get healthy when they see the lie of what has been perpetuated by big ag, they would instantly understand, because it's what I saw for 14 years. Right. So no one can ever tell me that it's X, Y, and Z. It's these stories. And so I would spend money on promoting that, to be quite honest with you. Right.
Yeah.
Because once people start getting healthier, their eyes open up, mental clarity comes, and it seems like kind of Pollyannish, but it's not. It's just something that I got to see, and I'm like, this is really simple. We just need to wake up to these priorities. So those would be some of the projects I would do as well. Yeah.
Love it. Policy. It's like such an unpopular thing with people because it feels unattainable almost. Like you have to dissuade a legislature, you have to make big changes, and it has to be in numbers, right? And so people are kind of like, why bother? Is kind of the general consensus. But policy just writes our daily lives. It really does. It's just this like silent, or not so silent sometimes, but it's just always there playing in the background, whether we realize it or not. And when we become aware of it and engaged with it, that's when we can really like grab a handle and create the world that we really want to create.
And often one last thing is people do not know the power they actually have. And part of the power that those who have held it over us is that we don't speak up.
Right.
That's actually part of it, right? Like, oh, it's too much. Okay, we'll just leave it and not do that. Mm-hmm. And so just that little bit aggregates to a lot of one call to a legislator about X, Y, and Z multiplies more. Yeah. And that's what, and so they depend on us being quiet and acquiescing.
Right.
I just don't think we need to do that. Well, I don't necessarily think we need to protest and be all out. We just need to vote with our food dollars. We just need to call. So it doesn't have to be this big, get your placard out and picket signs and stuff.
Right. Right. Yeah, it can be. We've talked about that on the show before too, is you vote every single day with your dollars. How do you spend your dollars?
And it does matter. It does matter.
It does, yeah. I mean, we do live in an economically driven society, and so how you spend your money, that's where the power goes.
Bingo.
And I just mentioned this recently, but I think it's worth driving home again. A lot of people really like to write the emails to the legislators, which is great. But we all get lots of emails, and legislators are no different. So the secret is to call and be nice. Don't scream at people, but call and let them know where you stand with things and what you would like to see. And even if you don't get the actual legislator, the person in charge, you're going to get their office and they're going to hear about it. or the person in charge is in the other room hearing the phone blow up about the same
What was
things,
that?
right?
What was that?
Right.
And then they keep hearing that over and over again.
Exactly. So the phone call is super powerful.
Good call.
Okay, so what is your favorite field story or stories? And for you, I just feel like you've spent like a wide range in the field. Like you've got farm stories, you've got stories in your acupuncture world, like you've traveled the world like under apprenticeship. So I'm gonna let you marinate and pick one. This could be just like the most amazing day where things went right, or it could be where things happened and it makes just a really great story now.
Wow, there's a ton of them. I think the ones that really resonate are the intersection of human health and farm, right? Because that's been such a big part. So this one gentleman, so I was basically farm sitting, right? Dennis had gone and his family had gone on vacation, so I'm watching the farm, and my instructions were this particular day, this guy is coming to pick up his food from the farm. Be ready. And so I got his stuff. It was like kefir, raw milk, yogurt, a bunch of cottage cheese. This is important. So I was like, cool, comes by, gets his stuff, fine. He picks up like on a Friday, something like that. And he picked up quite a bit of food, like enough food for like 2 weeks worth, right? Mm-hmm. So we're like, okay. So then, come Monday, he's back. And Dennis was like, didn't you send him his food? I said, oh yeah, I sent him his food. He's like, so he's back. And we're like, what's going on? Like, you had like 2 weeks worth of food. What's good? And he said, and he had this amazed look on his face. And he's like, I have to tell you a story. Apparently he had been suffering from irritable bowel, where he does a lot of tree work. So for him to get out in the morning at like, get to work at like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, he gets up at 3 o'clock in the morning because he's going to be in the bathroom for 3 hours, clearing his bowels.
Oh my gosh. Poor
guy. And then he has to run again. So he does that. He's been doing that for like 10 years.
Oh my gosh.
Every morning. He said the first day after he had the raw, the kefir or whatever he had, he had a bunch of them, I'm assuming. He said this is the first time in 10 years he had a full formed bowel movement and he didn't have to get up for 3 hours. This man was like kind of in tears, right?
Yeah, transformed his life in one weekend.
And so we're like, okay, that we can see why you're back again. So he had basically eaten all the food. He ate nothing but what we had.
Right.
And so and long story short, he ended up working with Dennis for many years afterwards. After I left, he became his driver.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was one of the most amazing stories that I actually remember seeing. Wow, this changes lives. And so every time I hear things like raw milk will kill you, raw milk will, insert the
right propaganda,
whatever propaganda is, I just know in my bones that is not the case. I have too many stories like that. And so that's just one of the more amazing ones. I'll leave you with one other one and this one, that was amazing itself. This other one is just, even now I think about it, I'm like, wait, what did he do? So I had one of my customers, interesting enough, not far from here in Claremont, get the food. And, I always struck up conversation, so on and so forth. So what he did was that he made some kind of smoothie out of it. And then he had a colostrum bag. And so for those who don't know, that's based, not colostrum. Yeah, he had a colostrum bag, but then he also had a feeding tube that he basically stuck it in and it went directly to his stomach, right? Because he had a large intestine transplant. I had never heard of the thing, right? So his large intestine, they took out and put a new one in. And so what he found was the raw milk was the only thing that gave him the most satiation. Right? Than anything else. And then he would actually blend up raw meat or cooked meat, raw meat sometimes, and it would completely digest. And so he ended up writing a blog about how meat actually digests. Because again, the thing that we're talked about is, raw meat will rot in your colon for 24 hours, whatever, days on end. And he was like, no, that's not the case, because he can actually take meat in there, and within 15, 20 minutes, it becomes this slurry, this soup, right? And then he was able to maintain his large intestine. I've lost touch with him over the years, but I was providing him the the milk for quite some time, and he loved it. He did very well on it. So these are the type of stories that I've had where it's just like seeing the miraculous healing that occurred that just blew my mind away. So
it's amazing.
yeah,
That is amazing.
those were fun.
Food is medicine. It really is. Food is medicine.
It really is, and there's just no way around it. And if more people knew that and understood it, yes, it's expensive on one end, but then you're saving so much more on the back end that you're not even aware of, right? That's really where,
I mean, like medical bills aside, which are obscene, but just your time, right? Like you can't get that back. And if you're feeling like crap, that's your time, right?
Yeah, that's your life being drained from you.
Yeah.
In all the ways. So it's been it continues to be, and I'm just more excited to be more active in activism work and educating people and all that. So
yeah, love it. Thank you. So I feel like we've kind of touched on it already, but I want to put a pin in it.
Yes.
At the end of each episode, I like to give the audience a conservation ask, something for them to like take away and go forth and bring into the world. What would you like the audience to take from your episode?
Oh, I think you said you had a suggestion, or you kind of had something.
Yeah. So, and I feel like we've been just talking about it this whole time, but know where your food comes from. Have that connection.
Yeah. That it really is. It's a lot easier than people think.
Yeah. And you know what? To that point, if it feels overwhelming, overwhelming, because it can. Like you look at your refrigerator and you're like, I don't know where any of this really came from. Pick one thing, just one thing. Do you get eggs? Where'd that come from? Do you get a piece of broccoli? Was it in the U.S. or was it just one thing?
And that's it. The paralysis by analysis, right? Mm-hmm. People do that, and it's a lot easier than they think it is, and it's just taking that one step. Here where I live, there are 3 places for farmers markets easily that I know of. I know there's a couple more. So it's a lot more available, right? Yes, it's out of your way. Yes, not just Whole Foods or Publix, right? Mm-hmm. But go out of your way, right? Just that little bit. Make it fun. It's exciting, and if you have kids, it's even more exciting because now there could be this connection. It could be an education for them to really understand where their food comes from, and educating that younger generation. There'll be less of a disconnect. One of the apprenticeship. Let me go back a little bit. So I was apprenticing on the farm, and there would always be like homeschool families that would come up. And this one family from Orlando had come up. They had 3 kids, 2 boys, 1 girl. And one of the sons, I can't remember which one it was, middle child possibly, he became enamored with it, right? And so he would end up coming to the farm apprenticeship after me. He and I worked together a couple of times. He was around 14 years old. I lost touch, but one time I'd come back to the farm visiting, whatever, and he had come back, and it'd been like 4 years later. This kid was like 18, 19 years old. He was like Paul Bunyan. I remember thinking like, wait, what just was huge, and he now is a rancher in Montana.
Oh, cool.
Right? And so you just never know the seeds that you plant with these kids.
Yeah.
Well, it'll go, and now who would have thought that he'd become a farmer? But we need more farmers, right? Yeah. And it's possible. So that's why I'll say, just get connected. It's a lot easier to think. These are amazing people. When they say the salt of the earth or down to earth, there's a reason why that has a positive connotation, right? And so I love and I still love my time connecting with farmers and real people and such.
Love that.
So thank you.
Love that. So if listeners want to find you, connect with you, learn more about you or your work, where's the best place to do so?
Sure. I'm on the Weston A. Price chapter leader for the Altamont Springs area. So if they go to westonaprice.org, they can also find me on realmilk.com. That's the other place where they can locate Real Milk. And then for me, with my work with health and other related aspects, Deep Dive with drsteve.com. Again, Deep Dive with drsteve.com. They can find me there as well. That's how they can get connected with me.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, Steve, thank you so much for being on the show. I really enjoyed chatting with you today.
It was great. Thanks, Kara.
Thank you for listening to today's show. I'd love to hear any insight you've gleaned. Leave a comment in the show notes or send me an email over at karagracemuzia.com. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a review and, of course, share with your friends. If you want more resources for creating a life of purpose and meaning, plus personal insight from me that I just don't share anywhere else, join me at karagracemuzia.com and sign up for email updates. Keep after your dreams and making waves in your community. One person can make a difference. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time on the So You Want to Be a Marine Biologist podcast.